All right, today we are getting our hands dirty, literally. We're going to uncover a fundamental secret that's right under our feet. We're talking about soil, and I promise you, by the end of this, you are never going to look at the ground the same way again.
So, let's start with a cool idea. What if you could pick up a handful of earth and just read it? Understand its potential, its history, its whole personality, just by how it feels in your hand. It sounds a little bit like magic, but it is a real skill, and we're about to break down exactly how you can do it.
So how do we crack this code? Well, the key to understanding this whole story lies in one single property, a characteristic that pretty much dictates everything else about the land. And that secret, it's called soil texture.
Okay, so what is soil texture, really? I mean, the official definition says it's how a soil feels, but it's so much more than that. It really all comes down to the Earth's recipe, the very specific mix of three basic ingredients: sand, silt, and clay. Get that mix right, and you have lush, fertile land. Get it wrong, and you might have something closer to a desert.
So let's meet the three main characters in our story: sand, silt, and clay. Now, they might sound simple, but the tiny differences in their size and shape are what make every single soil on this planet completely unique.
To really get this, let's use a simple analogy. Imagine sand particles are like teeny tiny beach balls. They're big, they're gritty, and they leave these huge gaps between them. Then you've got silt, which is way smaller. Think more like grains of sugar. It's smooth, kind of powdery. And then there's clay. The particles are microscopic, like flour. When you get clay wet, it gets super sticky, and you can mold it. The difference in scale here is absolutely massive, and that is the key to everything that's coming next.
So, when you start mixing sand, silt, and clay in different amounts, you get all these different soil types. You get these interesting names like sandy loam or silty clay. And then there's the famous one, loam. That's often called the perfect soil by gardeners and farmers because it has this beautiful, balanced mix of all three, giving you kind of the best of all worlds.
Okay, so it's a mix of different size particles. Big deal, right? Well, yeah, it's a huge deal. Because that simple recipe, that texture, it controls every single critical resource a plant needs to survive.
And here's the crucial part. That physical mix of particles. It creates a whole unique environment down there. It determines exactly how much water the soil can hold onto, how much air can actually get to the roots, and how many nutrients are available for the plants to, eat. It is, quite literally, the foundation of life on land. And this table just illustrates those trade-offs perfectly. I mean, look at sand over on the left. Water and nutrients just pour right through it, but it's got great aeration, lots of air for roots. Now, flip all the way over to clay. It holds on to water and nutrients like a bank vault, but there's almost no airspace, which can literally drown plant roots. And silt, well, silt's right there in the middle. Understanding this table is like having a cheat sheet for figuring out the potential of any piece of land.
All right, now for my favorite part. We've talked about the why, so let's get to the how. I'm going to show you how you can become a soil detective and read this texture for yourself. And the best part? You don't need any expensive equipment. Forget labs, forget fancy tests. This is all about getting your hands dirty. With just a little bit of soil and some water, you have everything you need to figure out exactly what your soil is made of.
This is the classic field test. It's called the ribbon method. First, you're going to take a handful of soil and just add water until it feels kind of like putty. Now for the first big test, try to form a ball. If it just crumbles and falls apart, well, you're dealing with almost pure sand. Easy. If it holds together, you move on to step 3. You gently squeeze that ball between your thumb and forefinger to try and form a ribbon. If it breaks before a ribbon even really forms, you've got loamy sand. But if a ribbon does form, well, its length is what tells the rest of the story.
And here's the secret to code a ring for that ribbon. If it breaks before it gets to about 1 inch long, or 2.5 centimeters, you are in the loam family. If you can push it out to between 1 and 2 inches, that's 2.5 to 5 centimeters, you're looking at a clay loam. And what if you can form this long, strong ribbon that's over 2 inches or 5 centimeters long? That's your big clue that the dominant ingredient is clay. That one measurement tells you so much. But wait, we can get even more specific. After you figure out your main category, loam, or clay, you ask one more question. You just rub the wet soil between your fingers, and you just ask, how does it feel?
This final touch test is how you fine-tune your result. If that soil feels gritty, you just add sandy to its name. So for example, a short ribbon that feels gritty, that's a sandy loam. If it feels really smooth, almost like flour,
You add silty to the name, and you've got a silt loam. And if it doesn't feel particularly gritty or smooth, that means it's a more balanced type, like a standard loam or a clay. And just like that, you've done it. You've classified your soil.
Okay, so here's a little pro tip for you. One common challenge is that silt and clay can sometimes feel pretty similar, right? They're both super fine particles, but they behave in totally different ways. So here's a quick bonus test to help you tell them apart with total confidence.
It's called the shaking test, and it's awesome. You make a wet little patty of soil and put it in your palm. Now, you shake it side to side, and watch closely, because here's the magic trick. If the surface starts to glisten and get shiny, that's silt. The shaking is pushing water to the surface. If it just stays dull, you are holding clay. You can even confirm by squeezing it. The shiny silt will turn dull again, but the clay will just hold its firm shape. Such a simple, brilliant little test.
So, let's just bring this all back together. We've met the 3 ingredients, we've learned why they matter so much, and now you know how to read them with your own 2 hands. You have literally learned the language of the soil.
And this is why it is so important to understand this stuff. Soil texture is not just some fun fact for gardeners. It's fundamental. As this quote says, it dictates farm productivity, what can grow where, and the overall health of our entire ecosystem.
So, the crucial takeaway, the bottom line, is this. Knowing your soil's texture is empowering. It's like a superpower. It helps you pick plants that are actually going to thrive, it tells you when and how to water, and you'll understand how to feed the soil properly. You're not guessing anymore, you're actually working with the land instead of against it.
So, you have the tools now. You can go outside right now, pick up a handful of earth, and read its story in a way you couldn't an hour ago. You've learned its language, so the only question left is, what are you going to do with that knowledge?